There's concern about inflation. There's concern about tariffs. Doug Flynn is here, certified financial planner and co-founder of Flynn Zito Capital Management. So that's kind of the big 30,000-foot view of this, is that new president comes in, energy in the country, people are a little bit more confident than they had been. But now we're not seeing that in these numbers. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what it is. I mean, consumer confidence is going down on the inflation and tariff talk. I mean, that's always a big issue for a lot of this. But, you know, that contrasts a lot with the CEO survey that we talked about last week, where CEOs were super positive, and now the consumer's starting to show some of their not confidence. And you're starting to see that also in the Treasury yields. If you take a look at the 10-year, which is one of the things you want to look at a lot, is it's down to the lowest point of the year. It's down about a half a point. And so it was just 4.8 in January. Now it's 4.3. That's going to lower some mortgage rates. And so now you start to talk about perhaps a weakening labor market. People are concerned about their future income. And then you have maybe the economy's weakening, consumer spending goes down. And then finally we start talking about interest rate cuts again. That's where that will start bubbling up.
Well, that's where the president's going to have a problem politically is, you know, if people start to worry about their jobs, which they are in this particular report from the Conference Board on the labor market. What was said was that views of current labor market conditions weakened. Consumers became pessimistic about future business conditions, less optimistic about future income. So that's not great. You're saying to yourself, well, I don't think I'm going to make as much money in the future. So pessimism about future employment prospects worsened, reached actually a 10-month high, the pessimism.
Yeah.
So what do you think people are feeling?
I mean, you're starting to hear people getting laid off, not just the government workers.
Right, the Doge stuff, but in the private sector too? Yeah.
No question. You're starting to see that, and people maybe aren't finding a new job as quickly. And so those things are bubbling up, and people are starting to talk about it. They're getting concerned. The consumer drives the U.S. economy, as we know. It's the biggest part of it. And so if people start to hold back some of their spending, that's when the economy starts to slow down. And, you know, that's the recipe you need for lower interest rates, not the other way around. So it's kind of a mixed bag. You want lower interest rates, you want lower mortgage rates, but you also want the economy to do well. But the Fed is going to step in when they see that weakening of the labor market. And so you're starting to see some of the cracks in there. And I think that's where we're going right now in the short run.
So is the White House worried? Well, here's Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, at the briefing talking about the economy. Listen.
We understand there are people that are hurting, and this administration is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring that those individuals see relief in price reductions, in tax cuts, and in less regulations that are burdensome on their household and their businesses. And the president and this entire administration are focused on that every day.
All right. So again, this is going to be the issue. It always is, and you know, they know that, and that's why
price reductions are an issue. I don't know how they're going to force prices down. You don't necessarily really want that. I get giving them a tax break or continuing the tax breaks, put more money in their pocket to keep spending.
You just want a slower rate of inflation. You want prices, that's a weird thing, people don't talk about it enough. You're right. Is that you want prices to go up, you know, like 2%, not much higher, right? At a lower rate, right. Now, deflation's worse than inflation. Okay, that said, let's talk. Hey, we have gone a few minutes and haven't talked about Elon Musk. I want to talk to you about Elon Musk, but nothing to do with Doge, about Tesla. What's going on? 45% drop I saw in European sales. What's going on at Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, they did have some you know, they have a lot of increased competition. Their overall sales of EVs in Europe did go up, but Tesla's went way down. Some of that has to do with, you know, creating shortages because they changed over their assembly line. So that created some shortages. And so they just couldn't sell as many. But, you know, look, his unfavorability rating has gone up a lot, not just here, but around the world, because he's weighing in on global politics. And so that's always a mixed bag when you start doing that. You know, we prefer you not to get your politics involved in there if you want to look at the company independently. And it's hard to do that, analyze a company and then decide to invest in it if you're going to have the wild card of what the CEO might or might not say. That's a harder one to sort of put into you know, analyzing.
Yeah, we'd always wondered if that would happen, whether you're kind of making a political statement by driving a Tesla. And now you could argue, you know, that some people see it that way, right? The cyber, like you were going to get it, right? You didn't get the Cybertruck, not because of politics.
That's true.
You had
but I
issues.
got a different EV is what I ended up doing.
You did, right?
So,
but I feel like if someone sees a Cybertruck driving down the street, that's a statement of some sort. They're like, I'm in with Elon. I don't know about the other Tesla cars, but that's a statement. No?
Yeah, the other ones, I think they're more, you know, they're very reasonably priced. They're mass produced. So I think a lot of people do find a lot of value, and they're well-made cars and people do like them. But some of the people that might have been inclined to buy them now are not. I don't don't know how many people that were not inclined before are inclined now, but I definitely know people who were inclined before who are not. So that was the risk here, and he's definitely, I mean, maybe it's a small amount around the margin. People are going to look at cars the way they look at cars. But, you know, this is the danger of when you start weighing in on not only the U.S. politics, but now telling Germany and these other countries, you know, what they should be doing with their elections and what they should do.
Right.
And it's going to weigh in when there's a lot of competition. China has ramped up their competition a lot. I think the Chinese EV outsold Tesla for the first time over there. So you have to be careful. Now, some of that, again, was his own doing with the assembly line adjustments, but maybe that'll pick back up in the next quarter.
Well,
but, you know, that's definitely weighing out there and certainly weighs into why the stock went down a lot today, why it's off so much, and whether or not you should consider it longer term for investing.
We'll talk about that. A future segment, but it's an ugly chart today. Thank you, Doug. As always, Doug Flynn, closing bell time.